the United States of America. Unity and oneness is what we're made of. One nation under God, it's plain to see. We're showing the whole world what a country should be. United we stand in America, hand in hand in America. Together as one in a land that we love. United we stand in America.
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, February the 18th. This is show number 280. 280 times we've been blessed to have this show. We are live at the Acts Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. And I am Lynn Morris, and as you see, Dr. Mary Byrne is still absent today. She is working every week at the state capitol, working for the Senate concerning education issues. The state of Missouri is trying to revamp our education system. And while we have a good education system in this state, there's a lot of changes that we can make that would make it more positive. And hopefully we'll get back to more local control as President Trump is trying to take away the federal authority and running the school system throughout the country and letting our experts and families and parents and everyone run it in our own state. Our guest today is Ron Sanders. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, we are glad you're here. Today, I want you to get out pencil and paper right now. Make sure you have a pen. Make sure you have paper. You're going to be writing some things down. And this is a controversial issue. And we're going to be talking about the pros and the cons, the goods and the bads of flock cameras. People say, well, what is a flock camera? A lot of people don't know that. They've not even heard of it. Well, it's license plate cameras. And a lot of people say, I don't know anything about a license plate camera. Well, I tell you what, Ron Sanders is an expert on that. He's done a lot of research. He spent a lot of time on it. He's from Christian County, same place I'm from, right here in Missouri, southwest Missouri. And we're going to talk about that. This is part one of two parts. It's that important that we're going to make sure that we explore and realize the good and the bad, and you need to be active. You need to be active wherever you live. Be active in your local government, your local city government, your county government, up to your state government, federal government. But it's much easier to be active locally than it is, and it's very important to do that. And so, last thing, I want to make sure that people know that Acts Ministry is a ministry that we want you to know about God. We want you to be saved and have life for eternity with God and His Son. And so today is a great day. Today is going to be in the 70s in the Springfield, Missouri area. And that's an awesome thing for February. But today is a day that you could accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. This is the day. Don't put it off. There are people right now that could do that somewhere in this country. We've got people watching all over the country right now and around the world. You can do it today. All you have to do is ask Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior. You need to let Him know that you want to serve Him and that He is your Lord. You can talk to Him about things that you've done in the past. He already knows all those things. He knows them. But you can get right with Jesus Christ today, and it's just so simple. It's so simple. And then you will have life forever. And then hopefully your friends and families will join you someday if you go to heaven first. So very simple, okay? But here we go. Write down this right now first. 4321. 4321 ACTS. 4321 ACTS at gmail.com. I want you to write down comments today and email to us, and we will respond to you. We want to know, what did you think about this show? What kind of questions did that make you come up with? And we will try to answer you. Ron may help me answer these questions. It's very important for us to have communication between our listeners, our viewers, and us. That we think this is a very important show. But I want you to be sure and communicate with us. So 4321-ACTS, all small letters, at gmail.com. Okay, here we go. So Ron, I am going to try to answer, ask you some questions. There's small print, so you're testing my eyesight out. But here we go. These are kind of technical questions, and we're going to try to respond to all of them. The first one says, what responsibility does a local government have to fully evaluate legal and financial liability before adopting new surveillance technology?
Well, let me first talk about what a flock camera, or ALPR, is. It's simply a camera that's put out on the road or somewhere in public that takes pictures of the license plates, sends that information through a computer system that reads the license plate and compares it to a database that will flag it for warrants, for stolen vehicles, for kidnapped children, and things like that. Things that actually give the government probable cause to go and apprehend somebody or stop them at a minimum. Now, the local government does have a responsibility to make sure that your money is being used properly. And also the legal aspect. We need to make sure that the government is using this information properly. And later on, we'll be talking about what the contract says between a private company, which is Flock, and the government, which is usually your police department or your sheriff's department, and what they can and cannot do with that information. Because there is such a thing as civil rights, and there are such things as civil rights violations that end up causing us, the taxpayer, tons of money. So if people start abusing this information, it's not the sheriff or the deputies or whoever violated that information or that civil right. It's we, the taxpayers, that end up paying higher insurance rates, or just have to make a one-time payout of $50,000 to $50,000 to $2 or $3 million for violating somebody's civil rights. Usually it's by accident, but there is a responsibility on the government to take a look at those things. Contracts and liability are the two big things that your local government, your city council, or your county commission should be looking at whenever it comes to surveillance. What is it going to be used for? How secure is it? What are the legal liabilities should somebody abuse it? What are the systems that we have set up to make sure that we catch someone abusing it before it becomes a bigger issue? I could give some examples, but I think we have a few more questions that we would definitely want to get to.
I think that's a good start. That's a very good start. Next question is: should contracts with private technology vendors restrict how collected data can be used, stored, or analyzed beyond the immediate law enforcement programs?
That's a great one, and that is buried in the contracts that nobody ever looks at, and I don't know, I wouldn't have confidence that our elected officials or people in our government would actually spend a lot of time on. Flock cameras, they're called Flock because ALPR is not really that flashy. It's not really that catchy, right? But Flock is a company, and we definitely don't want to get it confused. There are 17 different companies out there that I know of that provide these types of services. Flock is one of the most popular because it's been in the news quite a bit over the past few months with data breaches and questions about their ethics. As far as this goes, this is where that ethics come in. What should we allow them to have? So the first part is the data. The data is the pictures that are being taken and the AI development from those pictures. And what the private company wants to do is it wants to make money off of that information. And the sheriff's office or your local police department, they want to provide security and safety to the community with that information. So where do we draw the line? And right now, the only people that are drawing any line are the police departments and the sheriff's departments with their policies. We have no laws on the books that restrict what can be or what cannot be in these contracts. So what I have seen in a couple of contracts on YouTube that lawyers have broken down is that these companies have access to that information and they own the rights to access and use that information, in some cases, in perpetuity, forever. And they also have clauses in their contracts that say that it's irrevocable, which means that the city or the county or the state cannot revoke their privileges or their access to that information. They will tell you the county owns that information or the city police department owns that information, but they still maintain the rights to access and to use that information as well to develop what they call vehicle fingerprints. And they're using it for other things too. We can get into that later, or maybe during part 2 we'll get into that. But they want to use it to make money. They are not out here selling us these services for $3,000 or $2,000, which is very cheap in my estimation, to give us full access and them not have anything. They are in it to make money. So what do they do with that? Lowe's has license plate readers. They have the Flock cameras all over Springfield here. I don't know if it's nationwide or not, but they use that for targeted advertisements, targeted marketing. And Flock will sell that information from those cameras to anybody who wants to do target marketing. And what that does is I'm walking into Lowe's and I just got done looking for what I was looking for. I was looking for air filters. All of a sudden, whenever I'm done at Lowe's and I look at my Facebook feed or I go on Instagram or, I pull up Google, the first thing that's going to flash up there is a whole bunch of different makers of air filters. So that's targeted marketing. They might even have local air conditioning HVAC companies target me with advertisements as well. That's good because now you're finding out what you want, but that's bad because it's not our government's responsibility. And I don't believe, this is my personal opinion, I don't believe that they have the right to give those pictures that are taken for law enforcement purposes to any private entity to be used for anything else other than tracking down criminals. So that's where the restrictions need to come in. What are they allowed to do? And right now we have no laws that restrict that. We have no legislation in the process to restrict that. I think it's still new technology to where most elected officials don't understand what's exactly in those contracts or the impact or the what I call second and third order of effects from those contracts to make good decisions about striking out certain terms and everything. One of these days we will have that, but they're way ahead of the game and they are getting this information that we have no idea what they're going to do with.
Well, that's very good, Ron. So I'm going to just stop right now. I'll make a few comments and we'll go on to question 3. So very good information. So I want the listeners and the viewers to pay attention here with this comment. What you've heard, Ron, is exactly right. These are the concerns that we've got. But think about this. I believe in Christian County, where I am, we've got a great sheriff. We've got a constitutional attorney, sheriff. We've got someone that's going to protect our rights. Okay, and I believe in Greene County they have that too, and several counties around Southwest Missouri. I don't know about the whole state and the country, but this is very important when you're going to elect officials. You want to make sure that someone's going to protect your constitutional rights and do the right thing. So we've got this technology that's not being regulated, and all of a sudden you could get a new official in there that has completely different ideas about how he or she wants to run their operation, and then pretty soon you've had your rights trampled. So that's really important. That's why we're going to have part 2, because this is complicated and this is new. When I did the research, it looked like that pretty much in 2017 is when these things started. Now, there were some cameras that was way before that, but really in 2017 the technology really advanced and they started promoting these type of cameras. Today we have them everywhere. But think about it, we don't have regulations yet. And even the courts don't know exactly what to do, but we do have a case back in 24 in Norfolk, Virginia, we'll talk about later, and that said that these cameras were constitutional. So things are evolving, but just like AI, these cameras use AI technology. And I believe AI is, we should have had regulations about AI long before now. We don't really have federal regulations or even state regulations about AI. And while it can do some really positive things, it could be a real negative for our existence too. So these are important things to remember. Okay, let's go to question 3. At what point does the aggregation of vehicle location data over time begin to raise constitutional concerns about tracking rather than simple observation?
All right, this is where I get to geek out a little bit. The Supreme Court and appellate courts have looked at your rights in certain ways that say a snapshot of your day is not surveillance, but an aggregate or a mosaic of your locations and times and what you're doing could be determined as surveillance and could be protected under the Fourth Amendment, which is a guarantee from unreasonable searches and seizures, which surveillance could be considered a search at some point. So the law enforcement will tell you, our flock cameras, all they do is take a picture of a license plate, send it through a database, find out if it's flagged or not for one of those reasons we discussed earlier, and then send back information or just leave it go if there's nothing going on. But that data is collected for 30 days or more, depending on that contract we talked about. So now we have 30 days worth of data of you driving around town. And Nixa has, I think we have 6 cameras. The county has 4 cameras. I believe Ozark, just to give you an idea of our little area as an example, Ozark has, I think, 18 cameras or 20 cameras. Then we have Lowe's parking lot that has 3 cameras. So if you're running around town, your whereabouts are being recorded. And let's say that the police or the county sheriff decide to investigate you, or something happens to where you become a target of an investigation. Now they can go back 30 days into all of that data, and they can put together a timeline of all the places that you passed by. And this could indicate that you may have been in or near an area where a crime has occurred. And then they have reasonable suspicion, or they have circumstantial evidence that can say, hey, you might have actually done this. And I was researching a case where some lady drove through town, and she's a blonde lady, and she has a certain build. And the flock cameras recorded her going through town right near or about the time that a package was stolen in one of the side streets, not even on that particular street that the camera was on. So the detective that's investigating decides to go and confront the lady. And he says, I know you did it because I have it on camera. And he's already writing her up for theft. She's already been accused, and she's being cited for a crime based on a license plate reader incident that caught her in the vicinity of the crime. And because her build and her hair color match what they caught on a Ring doorbell camera, they're going to accuse her. Now, if it wasn't for her driving one of those vehicles that have cameras in it that record everything, including where she went, she would have had to go to court and prove her innocence, even though we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. These cameras kind of flip that on people. And one of the most chilling statements that I caught from that was, we have cameras everywhere. You can't go anywhere without us knowing. That's pretty scary when your government says something like that to you in what we consider a free society. So, yes, it raises a constitutional question because of who is storing the data, who has access to the data, and what can the data be used for. And I believe that it needs to be limited by law at the state level, at the county level, or at the federal level. But yes, there is a point where this information can definitely become a Fourth Amendment constitutional issue.
And Ron, that's a good point for our viewers, because one of the things that I've heard law enforcement say is, and you've heard it over and over, that the camera just looks at that license plate. It doesn't look in the back of the car to the front of the car to where the driver is. Now, you just said that law enforcement officer said they had blonde hair, small build, so that camera was shooting past the license plate and going on in.
That is correct.
So that is something for people to be asking their own law enforcement officials exactly what is that camera viewing and things like that, because that's where I think regulations and things need to go. And certainly you and I and many people are not against law enforcement and the tools that they can use to keep us safe.
Oh, no.
So we're not against that.
Let me make one thing clear. I am not against this technology being used for law enforcement purposes. I believe that there have been children that have been recovered in kidnapping situations. There have been vehicles that have been recovered in vehicle theft situations. There have been child predators that have been stopped from going into areas that they're not allowed to go to. But there has to be set limits on what this should be used for. And the only people that are doing that right now are the law enforcement agents themselves. But we need to have those checks and balances, and we need to make sure that private companies are not being not freely using this information for their own purposes as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Okay, the next question is, which government collects the large amounts of data using private sector technology, and who ultimately controls how that data can be used?
That is an awesome question, because I think that is the biggest concern that people have right now, is where's that data going? What is that data being used for? And right now it's not clear. The police departments and the sheriff's departments will tell you that, hey, we take pictures of the license plate, we run it through that system, and we hold that for 30 days, and then we dump it. The contracts between them and the private company say something completely different. And the companies, like Flock or Motorola, have access to that data as well. And now in their contracts, they may or may not have clauses that give them the right to use that data or to look at that data as well. So until we have state laws or local laws that say this is all you're allowed to do with that data, it's a free-for-all. And we don't know at this point what that large amount of data can be used for. Now, if you go to Flock themselves and you look at the patent for their one camera, their patent says that they want to use that information to develop vehicle fingerprints. And what a vehicle fingerprint is it's a fingerprint of your vehicle, not just the license plate, but any noticeable dings or scratches that can be noticed from the camera that will distinguish your vehicle from another similar vehicle. Bumper stickers. Everybody loves those bumper stickers, right? Yeah, that is going to also single your vehicle out with a specific fingerprint. They can also see you, and the cameras are getting better, and they want to develop AI ability to do facial recognition as well, so that they can connect your registration, which is public, to your face and start to do facial recognition and start to identify you in that manner. So with all that being said, where's the limit? Because we're not here to be living underneath cameras. We're not here for the government to be watching our every move, because it changes how we exercise our liberty. It needs to be limited for a specific use, like the police tell you. We're just taking pictures of that license plate, nothing else, and we're running it through a database to try to catch criminals. And that's all that should be going on in that whole technological aspect. But is it going? We don't know. There are no laws. I don't think enough has been put into reading the contracts to know. And people want this. They want this technology for the safety. And are they willing to trade the security? Are they willing to trade their freedom for that security? That's a big question.
Very good. Very good comments. So, okay, next question. Should private companies that provide surveillance technology be allowed to freely use or analyze government-collected data, or should strict limitations exist in the laws?
All these questions have been building up to this, and I don't think that there is a problem with the government using the technology, and I don't think that the law enforcement agencies are doing anything nefarious. There are always individuals that are going to do things and get caught and get prosecuted. But private companies, they need to make money. And in order to make money, they're going to start wanting to do things, and they're going to start putting things in these contracts to where they can have access to that data. And they want to freely be able to use that to develop the fingerprint, the vehicle fingerprint. They want to develop facial recognition, since in our society, I don't think the government, even though it's probably doing it, government's really not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. But if a private entity does that in a private manner, then they can start doing a lot of things to sell your information even more effectively. Because now they can start identifying where you go in stores based on store surveillance, which is on private property. It's privately owned, it's private property, and they can go into contracts all day long and surveil you in those private places. And there's nothing that you can do about it except not go there. The only limit that we have is what we allow our government to do. And that is where we need to start learning more what's in the contracts and going to our elected officials and saying, this is not acceptable. We can still manage our mission of catching criminals without allowing all of this other stuff to go on. So I say no. I say we need laws. I say that people need to get smart about this stuff and understand the situations and make it an election issue. If you have two people that are being elected to your representative's position or your Senate position or your city council, you should be asking them, what do you know about license plate readers and flock cameras? What do you know about them surveilling us? And what's your position on allowing them to surveil us? How far will you let them go? Will you let them just freely video our every whereabouts and start to put together our lives record, and start to track us? No, I don't want that candidate. I want the candidate that's going to say, hey, let's pass a law that restricts what you can do with this information. And if we still need it and it costs a little bit more, that's up for the citizens to decide to spend that money wisely on that particular technology to be safe.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Let me ask you a real quick question. So we were talking about facial recognition, surveillance. So that almost means that we got to have a camera taking a picture of the front of your car and the back of your car, right? Because so that's how many cameras are going to be out there. Some places are already out there where they can take the front and the back. Not every state requires a license plate in the front, but if they're taking a picture of that car, they maybe understand the color, the type of car, the grill, everything, and then they're going to take a picture of that person driving, as well as the license plate on the back, if there's only a license plate in the back. That's what people need to be thinking about, because you've got the front of your car, you got the back of your car, and I always thought to begin with, they're just looking at the back of your car, but they're not necessarily just looking at the back of your car. Okay.
Nope.
All right.
And let me just throw something else out there. Florida is already on the front edge of this, to where they passed a law that you are not allowed to obscure your license plate for AI to read it. So there are ways that you can spoof a license plate so that we can still read it, but computers can't. And in Florida, it's illegal to do that. So if you put a film over the license plate that everybody can still see through, but the computer can't read it, that's illegal. If you put dots in certain manners around your license plate reader that throws off the AI, that throws off the computer being able to read it, that is illegal in Florida. They've already passed a law to force you to submit to AI for them to be able to use AI against you, which I would never expect Florida to do. But that's the kind of stuff that we need to be concerned about, because now that is infringing on our freedom, just like not having a front license plate. Most states want front license plates so that the cops can read your license plate coming at you, but also because cameras have been around since the early 2000s, taking pictures of your license plate to charge you for tolls and stuff like that. That's already been an incredibly effective way of tolling. And in many states, you don't even have to carry one of those pre-passes anymore. You can just go through and they will send you a bill to your house for driving on interstates.
I've seen that in Florida many times.
Yep. So it's already there. But our state's going to go the way of Florida and make it so that you have to submit to AI, or our state's going to go the other way and say, hey, AI needs to be restricted. This technology needs to be restricted. And I hope that everybody that's watching this takes the latter stance and starts pushing their legislators to legislate this stuff and be limited.
Very good. Okay, good points. Okay, next question. How do clear written policies and oversight protect officers and their cases from being challenged if technology is misused or policies are unclear?
This is a great question because this is where constitutional tests will end up in the courts. And a lot of money will end up being spent frivolously. Police have to build a case, and they have to have good, solid grounds whenever it comes to being put in front of the courts. And let's say you have a couple of policemen or technicians that are abusing the system, and they go in there and they start looking up stuff that they're not supposed to, violating the Fourth Amendment. They go in before they have probable cause, and they start researching someone's whereabouts. If they don't have probable cause or reasonable suspicion, then they definitely can't use that for trial. But there are ways to manipulate this kind of information. There are ways to backdate stuff in systems. We need to make sure that that can't be done for court purposes, because if I'm going to go on trial for something and somebody's going to be using a whole bunch of computer data against me, I want to be able to go in and look at all of that computer data and make sure that nobody's manipulated it. Nobody's setting me up. Nobody's planting evidence, like the old days. The new days is planting evidence on computers, being able to hack something, being able to put something in the code to where nobody can detect it. And it sounds kind of conspiratorial, but as we know over the past few years, conspiracy theorists have started to become conspiracy, factists, I guess you could say. But as far as this goes, clear written policies give the officers, give the detectives guidelines on how to conduct themselves so that when the evidence is collected, it's not thrown out in the courts and we haven't wasted hundreds of man hours to try to prosecute somebody. It's also clear in auditing people and auditing the system to make sure that people don't go in and abuse their privileges. There's been a few cases so far that I've found where somebody has gone in and did a lot of research in this system looking for an ex or looking for somebody that they have a grudge with and trying to find their whereabouts for whatever reason. And then they get caught through the audit system, and then they get prosecuted. We need to make sure that that audit system is required. So that requires those policies. But it may require in state law to force a policy to be written by a law enforcement agency, because the law enforcement agency might be like, well, I trust these people. I'm sorry. I'm a Reagan guy. Trust but verify. So, yes, policies are very important. People need to, the people, the regular citizens, need to every once in a while say, hey, send me those policies. Exercise our sunshine laws. Exercise our FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and get these things and take a look at them, especially when they're in the public eye, so that we can say, hey, everybody take a look at this. Tell me if you think that this is reasonable. And that's what keeps the world sane. As soon as we don't look, we're being irresponsible. And as soon as they start acting because we don't look and doing things that they shouldn't be doing, then it's our fault anyways because we weren't checking. It's our fault because we weren't being responsible citizens to look at our government and say, hey, what are you doing? So that's very important. But
well, I tell you what, Ron, that makes me think, of all the things that you've talked about, that really makes me think there's a lot of things that we still need to learn. The judges are going to have to learn a lot. Law enforcement is going to have to learn a lot. Citizens are going to have to learn a lot. I don't think these things are going to go away. And so we need to make sure, like Ron says, we got to make sure that we are protecting our rights, allowing law enforcement to do what they need to do, and we need to be able to control it. And so I'm hoping that sooner than later we'll start coming up with policies and legislative laws and things like this to where the courts can decide and make the right decisions, because sometimes courts don't always make the right decision either. So, I mean, we got some situations. Okay, next question. What standards help ensure powerful investigative tools are used consistently for legitimate investigations and not casually or improperly?
That's where the contracts come in. That's where the contracts and policies should be aligned with one another to clearly establish what you are allowed to do with the information. And I think that that's where if everybody gets deep into this, or even if you're just watching this for the first time and just interested, you understand that there has to be a clear vision of how these things should be used. And like the police say, we just want to take a picture of the license plate and we want to run it through a database and find out if the car is stolen, if there's a kidnapped child, or if there's a felon. If somebody already has a warrant, we want to take them off the streets and put them in front of a judge. All this other stuff that enters into the picture in these contracts, who gets to have the data, how long is the data stored, that should all be measured by what we want to do with that information. And if we want to investigate somebody back 6 months or a year, then we're going to have to put it in front of the Supreme Court and say, is this considered surveillance? Is this considered a search? Is this allowed? And who gets to do it and when? But if that's the only purpose is to catch felons, to catch people with warrants, stolen vehicles, and kidnapped children and stuff like that, there's already a probable cause there. There's already justification under the Fourth Amendment to do these things. And that's where the limits should be. So that's the standard. The standard is, what do we want to accomplish? And if that's all we want to accomplish, then that's great. If the police want to do more, if they want to be able to reconstruct your whereabouts for the last 30 days or the last 6 months, if you commit a crime in the future, now we're talking about something bigger. And that should be debated by all citizens. Do you want the government to know where you've been for the last 30 days? I don't. I don't think it's any of their business. I don't want Walmart to know how many times I've come in. I have no control of that. But I do have control of my government.
Yeah, let me ask you this question, Ron. We're getting ready to be the end of our show, but I started looking into once, and I'm not the expert that you are on these cameras, but I've tried to read some too, and China, Russia, Cuba. I've been to some of these countries, and all over the world, I've seen a lot of cameras. You've seen cameras. If you all have traveled, you've seen cameras everywhere, even your phones. I mean, this is law enforcement can tell you where you're at all times of the day, 24 hours a day. If you've got your phone with you, they're going to know what you're doing, and they're going to know where you're at. And so we're all under surveillance, whether you like it or not, but we have to make sure, like Ron's saying, that we control it and we make sure that our constitutional rights are not infringed and taken away from us. But I was looking about Russia and Cuba and China. They have flock cameras. They have those cameras. They're more sophisticated. They've turned the technology up. It's the same basic camera, but it's been turned up. And not only has it been turned up and the technology is vastly improved with AI, it also is everywhere. So they have hundreds and thousands of cameras. So there is not one cranny of the area that they can't watch in China and the communist countries. We don't want our country to be that way. Our country is unique and the best country in the world, and that's why our freedoms and our privileges and our rights and our constitutional rights are so important. Okay, I'm going to talk about our sponsors, and then, Ron, I'm going to let you give our last words. Think about what you want to leave with our viewers. We'll have to come back and do part 2, but and at that time we'll have Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton from Camden County. That's Lake of the Ozarks, the beautiful Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, where a lot of people use the lake for recreation, a lot of shopping and resorts and things like that up in that area. So Brad Pistow is a certified fiduciary financial planner located in Ozark, Missouri. I use him. My family uses him. Many of my friends use him, and Dennis just started using him. He is probably not just one of the best in the state of Missouri, he is one of the best in the entire country on retirement planning, okay? He's written 2 books. The first book is Safe Money Matters, best-selling book on Amazon, retirement planning, and Bulletproof is his second book. You can call, that's why you need a pencil and paper, you can call 417-581-9222, 417-581-9222, and they will send you, Lisa will send you books, they'll send you information. There is no charge. And when you come and see him, talk to him on the phone or talk to him in person, there is no charge. He doesn't charge for financial planning, okay? And what he's going to give you is a program. He's going to develop a program where you will not run out of life before you run out of money. Okay, a lot of people are worried. They think they're going to run out of their money and outlive what they have. No, not with Brad Pistow's plans, okay? He's licensed in 18 states. I know there's more states, but he has associates in all the other states. He speaks around the country. He contributes to Wall Street Journal. He contributes to USA Today. Many publications he contributes. He's the real deal on financial planning. And finally, it's never too early to start thinking about your retirement planning. With the cost of living today, and it doesn't look like it's going down much, it's going to continue to increase every year. Healthcare costs, food costs, insurance costs, all these things. You need to have a plan now. Okay, so Brad Pistow, certified fiduciary financial planner, located in Ozark, Missouri. Our second sponsor is Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia. Used to be Youngblood Motor Group. Today it's John Whittaker. He is the owner. And then we also have Aaron Swanson, who is the sales manager, general sales manager. I bought my last 3 cars from these guys. I bought my last car on Labor Day. I bought a Kia Sorento SUV, just a beautiful car. I love my car. And then Mary, who usually sits right here, Dr. Byrne, a week ago, bought a Nissan Rogue. A great car, 0% financing, 5 years. Got a great trade-in on her car, just as I got a great trade-in on my Grand Cherokee Jeep that I'd bought from them. And so they treat you right on service, and they're located at 3838 South Campbell. They have new cars on one side of South Campbell, and they have used cars on the other side of the street on South Campbell. And you're going, well, I don't live in Missouri. Well, for some reason, probably because of customer service and price, 8 states, there are people from 8 states that buy from these guys. They've been in business over 45 years. One of the oldest family-owned car dealers in Southwest Missouri. It would pay you to go and price their cars and see what they can do for you right now. They still have some great specials on 25s, and you can really save some money. These two sponsors are just awesome sponsors. They are great in helping nonprofits all over the area, and they do great things, and we really appreciate those sponsors. Okay, so now what can we leave until we meet again? What do you want the people to remember and think about?
Okay. First, let me just tell you something. I'm sitting in my house, and I have Ring cameras, and I get a Ring notification over this weekend, and it says a squirrel is in your front driveway. So now Ring cameras have the AI ability to determine that it was a squirrel and not a cat and not a dog or a pigeon. Maybe they'll get to the point where they'll say an armed felon with an AR-15 is at your front door. That would be great. But that's where we are right now with this technology. And one of the pushbacks that really, really gets me, and I think that everybody out there really needs to think about this. The most common statement is, if you're not doing anything wrong, why worry? Well, I had to write this down because it's that important, okay? Liberty isn't just about doing nothing wrong. It's about being free to live, move, and associate without feeling constantly recorded or analyzed. A free society assumes innocence. A surveillance society conditions behavior. And that is true. When people believe their movements, associations, and daily routines may be cataloged and reviewed, they naturally begin to self-edit. You start to become conscious about people watching you. That Big Brother thing, like in the Big Brother shows and all that kind of stuff. Where they go, who they meet, what events they attend, that's a big one. Even what causes they support. You know, you're attending special events for this or for that. Do you want the government recording that kind of stuff? Over time, that quiet self-censorship doesn't just change your individual behavior, but it subtly reshapes how you exercise your liberty, how your liberty is actually exercised in your everyday life. That surveillance will change who you are and will change who we are and what we believe our liberty should be. And that should be a conscience thing. It shouldn't be a surveillance thing. And anybody who's thinking like that doesn't really understand what liberty is and the responsibilities, morally and ethically, behind our liberty, I don't believe. But whenever it comes to this kind of stuff, it needs to be limited because we don't need anybody teaching us to self-censor or limiting or trying to shape how we exercise our freedom.
I think those are great words. I hope people enjoyed our show today. I hope our show brought out a bunch of questions in your mind. If we did that, we've accomplished what we wanted to do, because this is something that's not going to go away. It's going to keep evolving, and we need to have controls over it. We need to make sure we protect our liberties. Think about the hundreds of thousands of veterans who have served our country and fought and protected our freedoms. Think about that. A lot of them have passed away. A lot of them died while active duty, and we cannot allow our country now to go into what other countries are doing today. So please, 4321-ACTS at gmail.com. Please send us some responses today about this show. We'll incorporate those into part 2, and we'll be back next Wednesday. God bless.
We're the United States of America.